Kidnapped by Crows, Wednesday, April the 13th. The wild geese were up at daybreak so they could have time to get themselves a bite of food before starting out on the journey towards Östergötland. The island in Wndrfl, where they had slept, was small and barren, but in the water all around it were growths which they could eat their fill upon. It was worse for the boy, however. He couldn't manage to find anything eatable. As he stood there, hungry and drowsy, and looked around in all directions, his glance fell upon a pair of squirrels who played upon the wooded point directly opposite the rock island. He wondered if the squirrels still had any of their winter supplies left, and asked the white goosey gander to take him over to the point that he might beg them for a couple of hazelnuts. Instantly, the white one swam across the sound with him, but as luck would have it, the squirrels had so much fun chasing each other from tree to tree that they didn't bother to listen to the boy. They drew farther into the grove. He hurried after them, and was soon out of the goosey gander's sight, who stayed behind and waited on the shore. The boy waded forward between some white anemone stems, which were so high they reached to his chin, when he felt that someone caught hold of him from behind and tried to lift him up. He turned round and saw that a crow had grabbed him by the shirt band. He tried to break loose, but before this was possible, another crow ran up, gripped him by the stocking, and knocked him over. If Niels Holgersen had immediately cried for help, the white goosey gander certainly would have been able to save him, but the boy probably thought he could protect himself, unaided, against a couple of crows. He kicked and struck out, but the crows didn't let go of their hold, and they soon succeeded in raising themselves into the air with him. To make matters worse, they flew so recklessly that his head struck against a branch. He received a hard knock over the head. It grew black before his eyes, and he lost consciousness. When he opened his eyes once more, he found himself high above the ground. He regained his senses slowly. At first he knew neither where he was nor what he saw. When he glanced down, he saw that under him was spread a tremendously big woolly carpet, which was woven in greens and reds and in large irregular patterns. The carpet was very thick and fine, but he thought it was a pity that it had been so badly used. It was actually ragged. Long tears ran through it. In some places, large pieces were torn away, and the strangest of all was that it appeared to be spread over a mirror floor, for under the holes and tears in the carpet shone bright and glittering glass. The next thing the boy observed was that the sun unrolled itself in the heavens. Instantly, the mirror glass under the holes and tears in the carpet began to shimmer in red and gold. It looked very gorgeous, and the boy was delighted with the pretty color scheme, although he didn't exactly understand what it was that he saw. But now the crows descended, and he saw at once that the big carpet under him was the earth, which was dressed in green and brown cone trees and naked leaf trees, and the holes and tears were shining fjords and little lakes. He remembered that the first time he had traveled up in the air, he had thought that the earth in Skane looked like a piece of checked cloth, but this country, which resembled a torn carpet, what might it be? He began to ask himself a lot of questions. Why wasn't he sitting on the goosey gander's back? Why did a great swarm of crows fly around him? And why was he being pulled and knocked hither and thither, so that he was about to break into pieces? Then, all at once, the whole thing dawned upon him. He had been kidnapped by a couple of crows. The white goosey gander was still on the shore, waiting, and today the white geese were going to travel to Östergötland. He was being carried southwest. This he understood because the sun's disk was behind him. The big forest carpet which lay beneath him was surely small land. What will become of the goosey gander now, when I cannot look after him? Thought the boy, and began to call to the crows to take him back to the wild geese instantly. He wasn't at all uneasy on his account. He believed that they were carrying him off simply in a spirit of mischief. The crows didn't pay the slightest attention to his exhortations, but flew on as fast as they could. After a bit, one of them flapped his wings in a manner which meant, "Look out! Danger!" Soon thereafter they came down in a spruce forest, pushed their way between prickly branches to the ground, and put the boy down under a thick spruce, where he was so well concealed that not even a falcon could have sighted him. 50 crows surrounded him, with bills pointed towards him to guard him. "Now perhaps I may hear, crows, what is your purpose in carrying me off?" said he, but he was hardly permitted to finish the sentence before a big crow hissed at him, "Keep still, or I'll bore your eyes out." It was evident that the crows meant what she said, and there was nothing for the boy to do but obey. So he sat there and stared at the crows, and the crows stared at him. The longer he looked at them, the less he liked them. It was dreadful how dusty and unkempt their feathers dresses were, as though they knew neither baths nor oiling. Their toes and claws were grimy with dried-in mud, and the corners of the mouths were covered with food drippings. These were very different birds from the wild geese, that he observed. He thought that they had a cruel, sneaky, watchful, and bold appearance, just like cutthroats and vagabonds. "It is certainly a real robber band that I've fallen in with," thought he. Just then he heard the wild geese call above him. "Where are you? Here I am! Where are you? Here I am!" He understood that Akka and the others had gone out to search for him, but before he could answer them, the big crow, who appeared to be the leader of the band, hissed in his ear, "Think of your eyes!" And there was nothing else for him to do but to keep still. The wild geese may not have known that he was so near them, but had just happened incidentally to travel over this forest. He heard their calls a couple of times more, then it died away. "Well, now you'll have to get along by yourself, Niall Holgerson," he said to himself. "Now you must prove whether you've learned anything during these weeks in the open." A moment later the crows gave the signal to break up, and since it was still their intention, apparently, to carry him along in such a way that one held on to his shirt-band and the one to a stocking, the boy said, "Is there not one among you so strong that he may carry me on his back? You have already travelled so badly with me that I feel that I were in pieces. Only let me ride. I'll not jump from the crow's back, that I promise you." "Oh, you needn't think that we care how you have it," said the leader. But now the largest of the crows, a dishevelled and uncouth one, who had a white feather in his wing, came forward and said, "It would certainly be best for all of us, Windrush, if Thimbletoft got there whole rather than half, and therefore I shall carry him on my back." "If you can do it, Fummeldrummel, I have no objection," said Windrush, "but don't lose him." With this, much was already gained, and the boy actually felt pleased again. "There's nothing to be gained by losing my grit, because I've been kidnapped by crows," thought he. "I'll surely be able to manage those poor little things." The crows continued to fly southwest over Smallland. It was a glorious morning, sunny and calm, and the birds down on the earth were singing their best love songs. In a high, dark forest sat the thrush himself with drooping wings and swelling throat, and struck up tune after tune. "How pretty you are! How pretty you are! How pretty you are!" sang he. "No one is so pretty! No one is so pretty! No one is so pretty!" As soon as he had finished the song, he began it all over again. But just then the boy rode over the forest, and when he heard the song by a couple of times, and marked that the thrush knew no other, he put both hands up to his mouth as a speaking trumpet, and called down, "We've heard all this before! We've heard all this before!" "Who is it? Who is it? Who is it who makes fun of me?" asked the thrush, and tried to catch a glimpse of the one who called. "It is Kidnapped by Crows who makes fun of your song," answered the boy. At that the crow chief turned his head and said, "Be careful of your eyes, Thumbletot." But the boy thought, "Oh, I don't care about that. I want to show you that I'm not afraid of you." Farther and farther inland they travelled, and there were woods and lakes everywhere. In a birch grove sat the wood dove on a naked branch, and before him stood the lady dove. He blew up his feathers, cocked his head, raised and lowered his body, until the breast feathers rattled against the branch. All the while he cooed, "Thou art the loveliest in all the forest. No one in the forest is so lovely as thou, thou, thou." But up in the air the boy rode past, and when he heard Mr. Dove, he couldn't keep still. "Don't you believe him? Don't you believe him?" cried he. "What? Who is that lies about me?" cooed Mr. Dove, and tried to get a sight of the one who shrieked at him. "It is Caught by Crows that lies about you," replied the boy. Again Windrush turned his head towards the boy and commanded him to shut up. But Fummeldrummel, who was carrying him, said, "Let him chatter, when all the little birds will think that we crows have become quick-witted and funny birds." "Oh, they're not such fools either," said Windrush, but he liked the idea just the same, for after that he let the boy call out as much as he liked. They flew mostly over forest and woodland, but there were churches and parishes and little cabins in the outskirts of the forest. In one place they saw a pretty old manor. It lay with the forest at the back of it, and the sea in the front of it, had red walls and a turret roof, great sycamores about the grounds, and big, thick gooseberry bushes in the orchard. On the top of the weathercock sat starlings, and sang so loud that every note was heard by the wife, who sat on an egg in the heart of the pear tree. "We have 4 pretty little eggs," sang the starling. "We have 4 pretty little round eggs. We have a whole nest full with fine eggs." When the starling sang the song for the 1000th time, the boy rode over the place. He put his hands up to his mouth as a pipe and called, "The magpie will get them! The magpie will get them!" "Who is it that wants to frighten me?" asked the starling, and flapped his wings uneasily. "It is captured by crows that frightens you," said the boy. This time the crow chief didn't attempt to hush him up. Instead, both he and his flock were having so much fun that they cawed with satisfaction. The farther inland they came, the larger were the lakes, and the more plentiful were the islands and points. And on a lake shore stood a drake and a toad before the duck. "I'll be true to you all the days of my life. I'll be true to you all the days of my life," said the drake. "It won't last until summer's end," shrieked the boy. "Who are you?" called the drake. "My name's stolen by crows," shrieked the boy. At dinner time, the crows lighted in the foot grove. They walked about and procured food for themselves, but none of them thought about giving the boy anything. Then Fumble came riding up to the chief with a dog rose branch, with a few dried buds on it. "Here's something for you, Wndrfl," he said. "This is pretty food and suitable for you." Wndrfl sniffed contemptuously. "Do you think that I want to eat old dry buds?" said he. And I who thought you would be pleased with them," said Fumble, and threw away the dog rose bush, as if in despair. But it fell right in front of the boy, and he wasn't slow about grabbing it and eating it until he was satisfied. When the crows had eaten, they began to chatter. "What are you thinking about, Wndrfl? You are so quiet today," said one of them to their leader. "I'm thinking that in this district there lived, once upon a time, a hen who was very fond of her mistress, and in order to really please her, she went and laid a nest full of eggs, which she hid under the storehouse. The mistress of the house wondered, of course, where the hen was keeping herself for such a long time. She searched for her, but did not find her. Can you guess, Longbill, who it was that found her and the eggs?" "I think I can guess, Wndrfl, but when you have told me about this, I will tell you something like it. Do you not remember the big black cat in Heine's parish house? She was dissatisfied because they always took the newborn kittens from her and drowned them. Just once did she succeed in keeping them concealed, and that was when she had laid them in the haystack outdoors. She was pretty well pleased with those young kittens, but I believe that I got more pleasure out of them than she did." Now they became so excited that they all talked at once. "What kind of accomplishment is that, to steal little kittens?" said one. "I once chased a young hare who was almost full grown, that meant to follow him from covert to covert. He got no further before another took the words from him. It may be fun, perhaps, to annoy hens and cats, but I still find it still more remarkable that a crow can worry a human being. I once stole a silver spoon." But now the boy thought he was too good to sit and listen to such gabble. "Now listen to me, you crows," said he. "I think you ought to be ashamed of yourselves to talk about your wickedness. I have lived amongst wild geese for 3 weeks, and of them I have never heard or seen anything but good. You must have a bad chief, since he permits you to rob and murder in this way. You ought to begin to lead new lives, for I can tell that human beings have grown so tired of your wickedness that are trying with all their might to root you out, and then there will soon be an end of you."